Hey guys, welcome back. It's Friday. We made it. We made it. We made it. Crazy, crazy day yesterday. I was out on the deck and helping one of the folks here that's helping me paint on some stain onto the deck. It looks amazing. And the way that my contractor set up the deck, it's called picture framing, so it's a little bit decorative. So we went around and basically painted the picture frame with this stain that just looks absolutely amazing. I'll probably upload some pictures on Instagram at some point or something, or maybe into the group. Show you guys this project I'm working on. It is a shed. It's actually two sheds I stuck together, and in a way that no one's ever seen put together before. It's kind of custom the way they're put together, but they are connected just to give me the square footage that I needed to pass the whatever local laws or whatever. And so it's just been crazy these last 48 hours. I've had turkeys walking through my yard, and it's not turkey season yet, but I'm just like going, oh man, like literally within 20 feet, turkeys just walking through, and they're silent. They don't really say anything. They're not gobbling or anything. I don't know what that's about, but it's like two turkeys walking right through. And looked like that one of them was bathing in the ashes that of a fire that I had built down the hill, maybe for parasites or whatever, but it was like ruffling its feathers into the ashes. And I was just, all I can tell you, I was just so excited about this. It was amazing. I was like, wow, I literally have turkeys walking through my yard. So yesterday we're out on the deck painting the picture frame, and my contractor's inside working on the shower membrane. And so for those of you that don't know, when you install a shower, you have to, well, you don't have to, but you can paint this membrane to the shower surface so that water does not leak into the walls or soak up into the walls. Oh my goodness. My contractor comes out and he is literally turning colors, about to pass out. I go, dude, are you all right? And he's like, oh man, the fumes coming off of that membrane is crazy. He was literally out of his mind for like the next hour. I walked through. He's like, don't go in there. And I walked through just to see what was going on. And I almost passed out just walking past the bathroom. And lo and behold, he shows me the color of this stuff, and it's Smurf blue. And I'm like, really? You know, God has a sense of humor, doesn't he? We've been talking about this Smurf blue color and the lack of oxygen and passing out. And you begin to realize that almost everything that you encounter in your life is a synchronicity pointing right back to the Most High. And so that to me is pretty amazing, because you're literally walking with God every moment of your life if you open your eyes and you be still and know that everything is in perfect balance. Even negative things that happen can sync back to the things that you're talking about or exploring or your biblical research or whatever. So anyway, the bathroom is now cured, and interesting, right? The lack of oxygen is now cured. And so it's fine to walk through now, but apparently this stuff is toxic. I looked it up online after he left. And I looked it up online, and it said that these shower membranes have caused people to like go into respiratory failure and stuff. I was like, oh boy. Anyway, we made it past that. And so now I want to actually do a follow-up on yesterday's show. We were talking about the Antichrist and Christ. And I was showing you in the calendar how the birth of Christ and the birth of the Antichrist are linked together, but opposites of one another. And I pulled up this pregnancy calculator because I wanted to go over it with you so we can be clear on this. I had a few people challenge me in the comments, and I want to address that and also clarify that the dates fall within a week of Christmas, but not exactly on Christmas. It's like the winter solstice. It's like 12/22, right in that range. And with pregnancy, that's an acceptable margin of error, because you've got floating dates like the date of ovulation. Nobody can really pinpoint that date. It kind of floats within a 1 week period. And so when you look at these calculators, they're not exact. They're usually off by about a week. Now, I worked in women's healthcare, so our task as sales reps was to know this stuff almost better than the doctors knew it. We were testing on this regularly. Now it's been many, many years since I worked as a sales rep in women's healthcare, but suffice it to say, we had to know this stuff. We did lots of studying on how this works, cycles, and all this stuff. Now, here's the interesting thing. The total number of days that a child, or not a child, let's put it this way, the beginning of the cycle from the actual egg that's in the ovary all the way to the birth of the child, which came from the egg of the ovary, is 280 days. 40 weeks. And that's a pretty amazing fact because a woman's cycle is 28 days. Now, they hide this fact from people. They want you to focus on 38 weeks from the date of conception, and that's what you always hear is date of conception to the date of birth, 38 weeks. But really, the secret behind it is that it's the full 40 weeks. It's the 280 days from the beginning of when that egg starts to develop in the ovary and is ultimately released into the fallopian tube to be fertilized. That's where you get the secret of the number 28. And the reason why they don't want you to know that is because that 28 links directly back into Jesus Christ. And if you knew that rebirth in Jesus Christ related right back to birth, childbirth, then there would be many, many more Christians on the planet, wouldn't there? Now, how does this relate back to Jesus Christ? Well, Jesus documented his lineage in the New Testament. He actually said that there were 14 and 14 generations, and that there was an exile in Babylon, and there was 14 generations between Abraham and David and the exile in Babylon. Now, there were a total of 42 generations that Jesus recounted, but he divided it up into 14 and 14, which is 28 as well. So we have birth, 280, 28, 14 and 14 generations. And when Jesus was pierced in the side, blood and water came out, didn't it? Well, what happens when you're about to give birth? First comes the water, then comes the blood. And when that happened, when he was pierced in the side, he was pointing back to Adam and how Eve was basically birthed out of Adam through his side. Do you see how all this connects now? It's always been about birth. It's always been about the generations and rebirth in Jesus. And this is why we had the flood at 40 days of rain, 40 days and nights. And there was sacrifice in the waters during the flood, wasn't there? Blood in the water. And Noah and his family were rebirthed into the new world to reset mankind. And in the end times, the Bible says that the end would be like birth pangs. And the days of Noah. Are you awake? I hope you are, because this is amazing. So, just like Noah was birthed in, as I just explained, into the new world, so too, at the end of time, which we're at now, it'll be like birth pangs and the days of Noah, birthing us back into rebirth with Christ, right? I hope you guys are understanding this, because this is amazing information. Now, let's get back into this birth calculator. Jesus as well as the Antichrist. Now, what I did here is I filled in the date of the winter solstice, or very close to it, December 19th, just a few days before the darkest day of the year. And I put in that as a conception date to find out when a birth would be. And this is what I believe was the conception date of Jesus, giving us a due date of 9/11 to 2023. The year doesn't matter, it's the date. So, if we were to believe that Jesus was born on blind 11, then his conception date would be very close to the winter solstice, the darkest day of the year. Now, what makes this fascinating is that, remember, conception is the date that the sperm meets the egg. But 2 weeks earlier, right around December 7th, that would be when the egg was developing in the ovary. This is when the egg, or the pearl, was in the harbor on 12/7, which actually happened in real life. That was a ritual, wasn't it? The pearl in the harbor was a ritual, just like blind 11 was a ritual, and it all centers around Jesus. The pearl in the harbor. The pearl is the clean seed inside the unclean. It's the Holy Ghost inside of us, even though we are unclean like filthy rags. We are made clean by the clean pearl. Now, why do I say a pearl is clean? Well, because the gates of heaven will have pearls. So it has to be clean, doesn't it? God wouldn't put anything unclean in the gates of heaven, would he? No, he wouldn't. Now, a strange thing happens when you type in the most common Easter date, the date that Easter falls on. We're going to put in March 30th, March 31st, right around there is the most common date of Easter. And when you put that in as the date of conception, you get the opposite. It brings you right back to the winter solstice as the due date. Now, obviously, the winter solstice date is not Christmas, but it's the week before. These are not accidents. Can you now see that Jesus is the opposite of the Antichrist? The Antichrist is the false Christ. His birthday was very close to the winter solstice. Jesus' birthday was closer to blind 11. Remember how they would always link Pearl Harbor to blind 11? They would always compare the two. Well, now you know why. I just showed you from this calculator. Now I'll put a link to this calculator in the pinned comment for you guys when the show's over today. Let me summarize. The Antichrist was conceived on Ishtar Day and born on Christmas, and the real Jesus was conceived near the winter solstice, near Christmas, and born on blind 11. Now that we've reviewed yesterday's show and hopefully clarified this for as many people as possible, let's get into what's going on with these cows that blew up in a dairy farm. 18,000 cows, of course, that's 666. And you have to ask yourself, would the controllers literally blow up a dairy farm? Would they do that? Would they go that far? They've already told us that they don't want us eating meat anymore, and I know you don't eat dairy cows, but cows represents the woman part of the cow, right? And so here we are, the attack on meat, the attack on the cow, the attack on the Vaca nation. Vaca means cow. We already know that they blame cows and cattle for much of global warming. We know that they've pushed the vegetarian agenda on us as well to no end. We know that they've demonized milk even. and created a much less nutritious form of milk that is literally has nothing in it. It's dead milk. But would they literally take out a dairy farm? That is the question. Let's read about what happened and see if we could find any clues about what's going on in Texas. Clarifications and corrections. A previous version of this story miscalculated the number of head of cattle slaughtered each day in the U.S. So I guess that's going to be clarified in this version. The fire spread quickly through the holding pens, where thousands of dairy cows crowded together waiting to be milked, trapped in deadly confines. We are the dairy cows, you guys. Now, I've never worked on a dairy before, but from what I understand, they're trapped in there. They can't get out. After subduing the fire at the West Texas dairy farm Monday evening, officials were stunned at the scale of livestock death left behind. 18,000 head of cattle perished in the fire at South Fork Dairy Farm near Dimmitt, Texas. Or about 20% of the cattle slaughtered in America on any given day. A dairy farm worker rescued from inside the structure was taken to a hospital and was in critical but stable condition. There were no other human casualties. Look at this, you guys. Look at the scale of this cloud plume. Now, when you think of a dairy, I think of metal buildings. I don't think of a lot of wood in a dairy farm. Let's keep reading here. It was the biggest single incident death of cattle in the country since the Animal Welfare Institute, a Washington-based animal advocacy group, began tracking barn and farm fires in 2013. Let's take a look at the date that this happened. I guess it was on the 13th. Let's make sure the date is right here. Yeah, April 13th. I don't know the significance of that date. That easily surpassed the previous high, a 2020 fire at an upstate New York dairy farm that consumed 400 cows. Texas fire is the deadliest fire involving cattle we know of. In the past, we've seen fires involving several hundred cows at a time, but nothing anywhere near this level or mortality. Now, we live in a society now where it's illegal, literally illegal, in many states to produce and or sell raw cow milk. It's literally almost like the days of prohibition. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Now, they don't know what caused it. Oh, they say a malfunction in a piece of farm equipment may have caused an explosion that led to the fire. Sounds like a bomb went off, didn't it? The dairy had opened in the area just over 3 years ago and employed 50 to 60 people. South Fork Dairy couldn't be reached for comments. Most of the perished animals, a mix of Holstein and Jersey cows, were in a large holding pen before being milked. The 18,000 cows represented 90% of the farm's total herd, each cow valued at $2,000. So this is into the tens of millions of dollars in losses. Texas ranks 4th nationally in milk production. So what is the message here? Well, to me, this is the war on meat, is what this is about. Let's get into some other show topics today. Italy wants to be the first country to ban cultivated meat. The war on meat. So, Italy with no meatballs? Really? Let's read this. Are these cultivated meat sausages from UK's Ivy Farm Technologies really a threat to Italian farmers? The new Italian government under far-right leader Giorgia Meloni has raised the specter of a threat to traditional food values by proposing the world's first ever national ban on production and marketing of cultivated meat grown from stem cells in a bioreactor, and is considering another insect-based protein. Okay, so this is actually a good thing. This is them getting rid of the fake meat, cultivated meat. Wow, a fine of $65,000 for violations by retailers or producers. Never mind the fact that cultivated meat is a nascent technology, years, if not decades, away from mass market availability. Maloney's gastro-nationalist SOP may appeal to the agricultural vote in this food-obsessed country, but if passed into law, it could end up exacerbating the bigger threat to Italy's food system, climate change. So, apparently they're going after fake meat, which is actually a good thing. So, the meatballs live on in Italy. Wow. What else do we have here? Walmart, again in the news. Remember, the war on cows is a microcosm for the war on people. Basically, they consider us useless eaters. And in many communities, rural communities across America, there are few other employment opportunities for a lot of people. And now Walmart is closing the gap in Chicago. Half of the Chicago Walmarts are closing. So this is a sign of the times. Pretty soon there isn't going to be much for some people to do when some of these jobs leave these areas. Now, let's get into electric vehicles. Now, we all know that when they start pushing agendas against popular public opinion, then unintended consequences happen. In this case, thieves are now starting to steal EV chargers. I don't know why they wouldn't put a tracking device on these things or cameras outside of these EV chargers, but apparently this is a thing now. How did the industry not see this coming? Thieves are targeting EV chargers. A new report from the U.S. Sun highlights a problem we've seen touched on a few times already. Thieves are targeting electric car chargers. We're not talking about people getting robbed or having their cars stolen as they sit and wait for it to charge yet. Now, we talked about this. I said, you're a sitting duck, sitting there for 20 minutes. There's some gas stations I go into, and I'm like, I don't feel comfortable even sitting there for three or 4 minutes gassing up my car. I mean, you're a sitting duck at that point. You could be carjacked. The longer time you spend sitting at these charging stations, 30, 40 minutes, an hour, things can be stolen out of your car. Your car could be stolen. You could be held up at gunpoint. Now, of course, this isn't probably going to be the norm, but if they're already stealing the car chargers, what's the next step, right? The report focuses on thieves swiping the entire charging station from private residences. Wow. Or the charging cables from cars left unattended. With people having the chargers installed on the outside of their house, it invites people who are wanting to make quick money, removing it in the middle of the night, something we're shocked nobody thought about before. We've also seen reports from police departments that thieves have been targeting public EV chargers. After all, they're loaded with copper and overvaluable materials. There's the copper again, isn't it? That problem seems to be random and small at the moment, but with plans for the federal government to dramatically increase numbers of remote electric car chargers, it could become common. While the expense of replacing a stolen charging cable or entire home charger will hit some people hard, it can also create an even bigger problem. If you rely on home charging to have enough juice to get around to your job and anywhere else daily, such a crime might dramatically alter how you get around. So, another unintended consequence of the electric vehicle revolution that is being pushed upon us by the current administration, Joe Biden. but I believe also is a bipartisan effort. This isn't going to slow down when or if Trump gets back into office, because he's buddies with Elon Musk, who makes these cars. See how this works? Now, what else do we have here? Now, this is creepy. We have a giant alligator on the loose, literally, in California. Well, it's not that giant. It's 7 feet long. But for California, 4 feet long is a giant alligator, because there are no alligators in California. I couldn't believe this story when I read it. A 7-foot alligator was found in the American River, and no one knows how it got there. Now, this reminds me of the 1980 film Alligator. Remember this one? Here's the, look at this, the alligator coming out of the sewer. In this case, somebody flushed an alligator baby down the toilet, according to this movie, and it was in Chicago after they'd returned from Florida, and got the alligator as a pet. And the alligator basically grew to an enormous size. Why? Because it got a hold of some genetically modified meat that was injected with hormones. And after the alligator ate this meat, it became massive. I might have to take a look at this movie again. This is crazy. Let's see how big this alligator got in the movie. 36 feet long alligator in the movie. I remember watching this movie and I was like scared to death. I was like, really? This could really happen. Like, that's what I kept thinking when I guess I was like 10 or something. So, I mean, where did this alligator come from? Did it come from a zoo? Let's read this article. Let's see what's up with this. 7-foot alligator ends up in American River. Look at this thing. I don't know if that's the actual picture. 7-foot alligator reported in the American River has California officials puzzled. You think? A fisherman told a friend he spotted the alligator on some rocks in the river near Sailor Bar in Fair Oaks, a suburb of Sacramento. Now, do any of you live in this area? Can you confirm this story? Wow. Let's go into the chat here and see if any of you could confirm this story, because I know some of you live in this area. You must have heard about this. This reminds me of, remember that whale? There was a whale that like swam up the American River or something, and it came all the way up to Sacramento or something with its calf. Remember that story? And everybody was talking about it. Wow. Alligators in California. Now, of course, I'm sure this, as we read this story, it's going to probably say, oh, it's global warming that's caused this. You know what I mean? It's probably a stunt. They probably released the alligator in there and said, look, global warming. California is becoming like Florida now because of this. All right. Has anyone heard about this story? Any Sacramento people here? I know it's early for you. I live here. It was on the local news, says someone. Awesome. Thanks for the confirmation. Let's keep reading this story. Now, this is funny to me because I grew up here, of course. I was born in Sacramento. Fisherman told a friend he spotted the alligator on some rocks. The friend captured the gator, securing its mouth with duct tape, and turned it over to the Wildlife Care Association. Oh, well, you better watch out, friend. Could get a $15 million fine for this. They'll probably hurry up and make a law in Sacramento that says if you capture an alligator or any other protected species, you'll go straight to jail and have to pay a $15 million fine. While the association cares for lost or injured wildlife, it's not equipped to deal with an alligator as big as a person, KXTL reported. So it turned the reptile over to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The agency took the alligator to a Bay Area facility better equipped to handle the large reptile, but it died hours later? Really? It was extremely poor health. The agency has opened an investigation to try to find out where the alligator came from. But officials suspect someone had been keeping it illegally as a pet. Typically, people acquire young alligators and abandon them when they grow too large to easily handle. The agency sees 1 or 2 cases annually. It's not common, but it's not totally uncommon. An alligator released into the chilly American River in winter conditions could have stood a chance, though. What? Wouldn't have stood a chance. Oh, okay. That's almost a death sentence. It's a misdemeanor to own an alligator in California. Let's read these comments. I'm sure these are going to be funny. Nonsense. The fishermen were likely owners. I'm sure the fishing game suspected that. Good story, though. And yes, I live along the American River, and it is ice cold right now. The gator would not have lasted long. Oh, interesting. I'm sure they know how it got there, at least wondered, or whoever owned it was nice enough to wait until spring to release it. If you really want to find the owner, just call area hospitals to see if anyone came in missing an arm or leg. Wow. The gator is obviously on spring break. Wanted to find out for itself if California is really as bad as Florida. Anyway, I'll attach this story for you guys. You guys can read this and laugh. Kind of sad for the alligator, but weird times, right? All right, you guys. I kind of put this off because this is a pretty touchy subject that we're going to talk about next. Budweiser, king of beers. Budweiser, king of beers, is now Dudweiser, queen of beers. If you haven't heard by now, Budweiser is now Woke-Weiser, as they have adopted I think it's a trans spokesperson or something like that. Now, just so you know, if you've been out of the loop, Budweiser has represented the men of men in America for a very long time. Now, you have to ask yourself, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this now? What's behind this? Well, it's to trigger you. And if you find yourself triggered by this, then you've already lost the battle in understanding why this is happening. They're going after Budweiser because they want to spark unrest and try to get you to speak out on social media so they can ban you for hate speech and silence your voice. If you haven't figured it out by now, social media is pretty much the voice of everything in terms of your political voice, your social voice. People don't, the days of handing out flyers are pretty much gone. It's all about your social media voice. And if you've garnered any kind of following over the years, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, for whatever reason, they want to silence that voice. So how do they do that? They start doing these stories, these triggering stories to turn you into a radical, or to make people believe that you're a radical. And I believe that's the point behind this. I believe this is a psychological operation to trigger people. Now, ironically, the symbol of Budweiser, as many people know, is a Clydesdale horse. Here are the Clydesdales right here. So I did a little bit of research into this, try to break this down, try to read between the headlines. And guess what? Let's see who gets it. What kind of horses do they use for the Clydesdales? Let's see who gets it first. What is the significance of the Clydesdale horse? And how does that fit in to this psychological operation, this Budweiser psychological operation? Let's see who gets it first. Yes, we're going to talk about the hormones and stuff like that in the beer and turning men into women. Let's see who gets it first. Somebody will know this because some of you care for horses and things. Daryl pretty much has it. They're really big horses. They're big in most areas except for one. Sorry for the crude humor, but it does get the point across. Yes, Joy got it right. They are neutered horses. I looked this up because I had to figure this out. But to qualify for one of the hitches, a Budweiser Clydesdale must be a gelding. So I looked up what a gelding is. It's a castrated male horse. So, there's a message here, isn't it? And I believe this is why this latest news, they're saying that they had to cancel a Clydesdale event as the Bud Light boycott grows. Now, why are people upset about this? Well, they feel like this is an agenda that's being forced on them, and on the surface, they're absolutely correct. But ask yourself why. Why would the makers of Budweiser do this? And as I explained, it's a gaslighting ritual. Now, there's more to this. Did you know that chronic alcohol consumption can interfere with your testosterone production? Now, I'm not sure how much you need to drink in order for this to happen, but you've got hormones in beer, and we all know the person, we all know him or her that likes to drink a 12-pack of beer every night. I think that would qualify for chronic alcohol consumption that would interfere with male reproduction. So, there's much more to this story, isn't there? The Budweiser Clydesdale. Let's read this article about them canceling these events. Budweiser distributor in Springfield, Missouri, that's not far from where I'm at, has canceled all planned appearances of the iconic I want to make a joke here, but I got to be careful. Clydesdale horses, citing threats to its employees. The news comes as the boycott of Bud Light on account of its partnership with trans activist Dylan Mulvaney continues to grow. I wonder if there's anything in this name here. We just talked about a Dylan, didn't we? Il Don. Remember that? Scrambled. Mulvaney. I'll have to break that down at some point. The beer's parent company, Anheuser-Busch, is having to react to criticisms as well as increasing problems, including a stock price that has dipped. Will Fisher Distributing decided to cancel all of the Springfield Clydesdale showings, citing safety concerns for their employees. Clydesdales have long featured in commercials such as last year's Budweiser Super Bowl ad. The horses also recently made their annual appearance at the Cardinals at Busch Stadium for baseball's 2023 opening day. Bud Light's partnership with Mulvaney was intended to brighten up the brand. Oh yeah, with rainbows. From its stale association with fratty college guys throughout the American colleges. I don't think that's really been the association. If we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light. How about you just make beer, and if it tastes good and it's at the right price, people will drink it? How about that? So, this is what's going on, you guys. Don't get triggered by this. Understand it's part of the agenda. Every company that's made a bunch of money has all been compromised long time ago. Now, it doesn't mean you can't ever buy beer from these companies or whatever, if that's your choice or preference. But what it means is when they do stuff like this, understand it's because they are controlled by the agenda as well. Now, here's a weird story that I want to cover with you guys. Some fishermen stumbled across a Jeep that was submerged in a lake. When the police arrived 18 minutes later, of course 18 minutes, right? 666. A woman was found inside, still alive. Look at this. Look at this. They're literally pulling this woman out of the water from this submerged Jeep. See where this happened and see if any of you heard about this story. Oh, it was in Texas. Did you guys hear about this story? Now, Texas is known for some very large fish, but not the size of humans. Actually, some of them are the size of humans. Fishermen in Texas called the police after discovering what appeared to be a Jeep almost completely submerged in a lake. When authorities arrived, they found a woman inside who was still alive. They called the Marion County Sheriff's Office, came in on Friday morning. Fishermen at Lake O' the Pines. Lake O' the Pines. Have you guys heard of this lake? Said he saw a black Jeep underwater about 40 feet from the boat ramp. Deputies arrived on the scene 18 minutes later, determined it was too dangerous to wade out into the water. They waited for the wrecker service that had already been requested to arrive. The fisherman then took the wrecker employee out in his boat to the Jeep, which was affixed with a hook and cable to pull it out of the water. It was at that time they saw the woman. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the scene? They were able to help the woman from the Jeep. They placed her in the boat and she was brought to shore. The woman was placed in a vehicle to help her warm up, adding it was colder than normal that morning and had been raining. The woman said she was in there at least a few hours. She got treated for hypothermia. In the course of their investigation, the Marion County office discovered the woman had been listed as a missing person by Longview Police Department in Texas. Wow. They were unable to release any information about the case. She had been reported missing. Whoa. I wonder what happened here. I wonder if, this is just my conspiracy brain thinking, right? I wonder if someone reported her missing and then tried to kill her. And so they probably gave her some sleeping pills and pushed her Jeep into the lake. What if that ends up being what happened with this story? And then she woke up and the Jeep didn't go all the way in the lake like the person had intended for it to do. And then they reported her missing. Oh my gosh. Well, somebody's in big trouble, aren't they? So, what else do we have going on? Here's our last story for today, and then I'll be back in the chat with you guys. Remember the Cashapp founder? Well, miraculously, they found the killer. Now, they're being real secretive about this. A tech consultant was arrested and charged with the murder Thursday in the stabbing death of the gregarious and popular Cashapp founder, Bob Lee, last week in downtown San Francisco. Here's the person that they said did it: Nima Momeni, 38, and Lee, and apparently they knew each other. Now, they won't elaborate on the connection. Momeni was taken into custody Thursday morning in Emeryville, San Francisco suburb, and booked on suspicion of murder. I think this is a man, they go on to say later. Stabbing death of Lee shocked the tech industry. Friends and former colleagues mourning the demise of a brilliant, generous man. Found him in Rincon Hill at 2:30 a.m. in the morning on April 4th. Scott declined to give details on how they linked the killing to Momeni. Sounds like money, doesn't it? The chief was also refused. Yeah, that sounds like money. Oh, Cashapp and money, really? The chief also refused to disclose a possible motive. Investigators served search warrants in San Francisco. Scott would not say whether a weapon has been found. They're really not saying anything, are they? So, this is the update on the Cashapp founder. Let's go back into the chat here and see what you guys are up to. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for showing up this Friday. Our next show probably will be either Sunday or Monday. But I want to hang out with you guys for a bit before we pop off of here for the weekend. San Francisco. Wow. All right. Need more money. Nemo money. Wow, that is right. It's that now that story does sound a little bit fake, doesn't it? They're not giving any information about it, and the person who killed him is Need Mo Money. Really? And San Francisco is the place where they're considering giving black people $5 million each or something. Fake, fake, fake. Yeah, just like Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff with everybody's money. Yeah, I'm not buying that one, you guys. Mo money, mo money. I love you guys too. You guys are amazing. We gotta have fun sometimes, right? Oh, wait, hold on. Someone said something here. Hold on. Let's go back up here. The guy was connected to someone. Oh, man. Oh, here we go. Renee says, that man that killed the Cashapp guy was connected to someone from JP Morgan Chase. Then all of a sudden, Elon announces Twitter finance. Oh, wow. Thanks for that, Renee. Edward Snowden. Yeah, we all got snowed by that, didn't we? Scripted reality. Yeah, we have to just laugh about this stuff. Yeah, Jamie, remember that? Something wrong, we too low. Bing dang ow. I have that like memorized almost. When that plane crashed in San Francisco. Why is it always San Francisco that has this weird stuff happening? Wow. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Anonymous, Joe, Yabba Dabba. Yeah, at least we see it. And that's why we can laugh about it. Think of all the sleep people who read this stuff and they're like, oh, this is real. And they live their life by it. And they soak up the pre-programming. And they're manipulated by it. And make their life choices and decisions based on it. So, yes, please thumbs up the video. That definitely helps with the algorithms and everything. Get the word out. Yeah, always Chicago too, right? Wide Awake one. Always Chicago or San Francisco. And then it's weird because we never get a full explanation as to what happened with some of this stuff. Like with that Chinese airplane that crashed and they did the news story. We never got a full explanation as to how that could happen. Because according to the news anchor, it was from the Aviation Administration. We got an official. So they basically lied, because if they were telling the truth and it really did come from the Aviation Administration, why didn't anyone get fired from there? Of course it didn't come from them. So, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, if you're new to the truth community, you won't know what I'm talking about. But basically, let's look it up. We got to look this up, you guys. We too low. Okay, now, my gosh. Oh man. So they want to call this a blooper? It was not a blooper. They straight up lied. Okay, this was Astana Flight 214. This actually aired on a local TV station. Local news station. And they literally said that it came from the governing body of the Aviation Administration. Oh, look, they took the video down. Look at that. See, these are those little leaks that they don't want people to see, because then we know the truth. So, apparently this is now censored content. You can't talk about this. I'll just show it on the screen here. You can see for yourself that something definitely is wrong with this. All right, let's go back into the chat. I can't believe they've censored that. That's just crazy. Wow. Now, back then, I remember when this happened. And It was crazy because there were actually people. Because humanity was much more asleep back then. Okay. There were actually people that tried to say that this was real and there was nothing wrong with this. And that we were just decoding something that wasn't there. There were literally people that tried to defend this and called us all crazy for seeing it. But now, obviously, it's a slam dunk. They messed up. The Matrix glitched. But it just goes to show you, and it does give you some hope that a lot more people are awake now to this stuff and they can see through this stuff when it happens. So the controllers have to be extra careful when they're trying to brainwash us. So, yeah, censored by the YouTube Dream Police. Yep. Wow, they're probably going to call it like hate or something. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not making fun of people of Asian descent. I have a lot of amazing and wonderful Asian followers. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of it and the deception of what they've done. And it's important to revisit this stuff and talk about it. So, and laugh a little, of course. All right, you guys. I love you. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And take care and be safe. I'll see you guys probably Sunday or Monday. Much love.